So, thank you, Dominic. And it is a real pleasure to talk to you all this evening. And I'm sorry that I'm only with you in the form of a recording, but I'm looking forward to the 30th of May when I'll be able to join you all live for the final meeting of this Small House at Allington reading group. So here are a few points to kick off your collective reading. And my first point is an obvious one, but worth making. This novel is a very good choice for an exercise of this kind. It's full of interest. Its large themes, its characterizations, its dilemmas are all very engaging. Trollope said of the book that he did not think he had ever done better work, and I'm inclined to agree. It was a success from the first, redeeming his reputation with his publisher, George Smith, after the relative failure of the Struggles of Brown, Jones and Robinson, which had been published in 1862. From the moment of the publication of The Small House at Allington, which came out in volume form in 1864, very skillfully illustrated by Millais, from that moment on, it has been popular. It was the last but one of the Barsetshire novels, with just The Last Chronicle of Barset to appear in 1867, and it set the Barsetshire series up for a strong conclusion. And it does briefly introduce Plantagenet Palliser, who will of course be central to the series of the parliamentary novels, which was to follow. And Trollope earned £3,000 from it, which was a very substantial sum in 1864. So a success all round. But that success did not mean that people altogether approved of the novel in every way, then as now. This is a book that divides opinion. And the main reason it divides opinion is the character and behaviour of Lily Dale, the young woman at the heart of the novel. Even Trollope was in two minds about Lily and her part in the novel. So I won't go into too much detail here about what Lily does and what she doesn't do. What I will say is that she reflects and to some extent embodies what I believe to be the central theme of the novel. That is the question of change, its inevitability, its desirability or not, what it means for those who change and for those who do not change. Lily refuses to change, or perhaps she cannot change. And that is one of the questions of the novel. What we think about that, what other characters think about it, what Trollope thinks about it, and moreover, what we feel about it, not necessarily the same thing. These are the issues and the questions that lie at the very centre of the novel. But Lily is not the only expression of Trollope's preoccupation with this theme. It's also a deep political and social issue underlying the way in which this novel is plotted and formed. And as it is in Trollope's parliamentary novels, the series that was about to get underway. Those political issues, that question of change also underlies those novels. It was a question that shaped Trollope's very personal liberal conservatism, a political and cultural identity that acknowledged the value and the necessity for change, for reform and progress, while also expressing a deep emotional and to some extent intellectual attachment to the past, the rhythms of the past, its patterns of belief, its web of relationships between people stretching back over decades, over centuries. The tension between incompatible codes of living is developed in a complex network of characters in the novel. The squire, the old earl and his sister Julia, Lily's sister Belle and their mother, Johnny Eames, the unpleasant and finally unfortunate Adolphus Crosby, the truly ghastly aristocratic family at Courcy Castle. The engaged but divided reception of the novel in the years immediately following its publication reflects a society that, in the mid-1860s, was both exhilarated and unnerved by the pace of change. Adolphus Crosby and Johnny Eames, two characters who are very clearly distinguished from each other in terms of their moral worth, both reflect these tensions. Both are unsettled young men trying to find their way in a shifting and changing world. The rootless Adolphus Crosby has no compass to guide him, and the consequences are destructive for him and for others. Eames, Johnny Eames, initially much more uncertain, has a place in his world. And despite his frustrations and misfortunes, he comes to represent the novel's central values. And yet, and there are many and yets in this novel, Johnny's life and destiny is to some extent limited. There remains, I would argue, something a little stunted about Johnny, even after he has finally grown up. But that's another issue that divides opinion, and I will be very interested to hear from you in our final meeting, the 30th of May, what your view of that is, your view of Lily, but also your view of Johnny. So connected with that primary theme is the question of money. Important here, as it is in so many of Trollope's novels. Making money, inheriting money, what money means. To have it, not to have it, to lose it. Trollope is preternaturally sensitive to the power of money. Money and money's companion in this new world, work. The capacity to work, the capacity to work effectively. Take, for instance, and this is well worth reflecting on, the predicament of Amelia Roper, associated though in difficult and uncomfortable ways with Johnny Eames, the limits of her life imposed by that lack of money, the choices that she can make and the choices that she can't make, the way in that in which that limits really the extent of her moral potential, which is significant. Trollope doesn't wholly approve of Amelia and the way Amelia behaves, and it's clear why that's the case, but he does respect her and respects the difficulties that she is working with. And without giving away too much of the plot, you haven't read the novel yet, Johnny's treatment of Amelia is one of the ways in which the novel finally questions him. So, reading this novel offers rewards on several levels. It has, I think, an absorbing and satisfying plot, and it is very entertaining. It's an entertaining novel, but it's also deeply thought-provoking, and it demands, in a way very characteristic of Trollope at his best, it demands judgment from us, from the reader. The title of the novel that Trollope was publishing more or less at the same time as this novel is Can You Forgive Her? And in a sense, that title could almost serve for this book. Can you forgive Lily Dale? Or is there anything to forgive? And answering questions like that in relation to the plot of this novel involves thinking about yourself. The dilemmas of the characters in this novel are our dilemmas. They haven't gone away. They impose really, I think, quite challenging demands on us as readers. This is one of the ways in which the notion that Trollope is a soothing and comforting novelist is so mistaken. I think he's a really challenging novelist. And you, as readers, have to decide, and you will feel differently, I've no doubt, according to your own experiences and your own approach. You have to decide where you stand, what your judgment is in relation to the questions and the challenges posed in the book. That's what Trollope wants from you. It is, to some extent, perhaps to a large extent, it is an exercise in self-knowledge. And in that sense, it represents Trollope's work at its strongest. I do hope that you're going to enjoy reading this novel, talking about this novel, and I'm greatly looking forward to hearing what you have made of it. Thank you.